Chris Ballard finally had a press conference. We've been waiting forever for him to talk to the media, and he finally talked to the media last night. And most of it, as you would expect, is about Jonathan Taylor, right? Been waiting to hear from him so that we could hear what he had to say. So I want to go into what he said. He said a lot. It was about half an hour. I think it ended up being 28 minutes. So there was a lot said, but I think there's a lot to gather from it. And I think Colts fans by the end of it should have hope in what could happen by the end of it. All right, so starting out, one of the first things he said in his press conference about Jonathan Taylor was, and I quote, I won't give up on the relationship. I won't. I think too much of the young man. And I think that right there, like that's who Chris Ballard is. Like, say what you want about Chris Ballard, say what you want about Jim Irsay and the way things have gone ever since those two have paired up, whatever, man. Chris Ballard, from all accounts, is a great dude, right? And the fact that he can separate the business side of it and have a real relationship with the players is something that's shown up over time. The players all have respect for him, which is why this situation with Jonathan Taylor is just so out of the ordinary, so unexpected, and it's gotten so ugly because I don't think Jonathan Taylor ever expected things to get the way they have. And for context into that, Jonathan Taylor, from what I saw yesterday on Twitter from Sean McGinnis and Zach Hicks, was that at the end of the day, Jonathan Taylor is upset about the fact that Jeff Saturday came in and he was basically forced to play on an ankle that he knew was still injured. And in doing so, that caused the ankle to get even worse. Right. So Jonathan Taylor, that's if you want to know why the relationship is messed up, that's why the relationship is messed up, is because Jonathan Taylor sees it as the team being negligent, right? Bringing in Jeff Saturday. We all love Jeff Saturday, right? But bringing in somebody who'd never been there before and was like, okay, well, we're a losing franchise this year and we need our best player to play. And things were like that when Jeff Saturday was playing, but it just doesn't operate like that anymore, right? Player safety is of the highest priority. So again, the negligence that comes along with bringing Jeff Saturday in and letting him make that decision to put Jonathan Taylor back in before he was really ready to get back out there, it says a lot. So that's where the relationship, that's why it's gotten to the point that it's gotten to as it stands right now. Okay, but he did mention, Chris Ballard did go on to acknowledge the fact that Jonathan Taylor's done a lot for both the organization and the city. Like, made sure to mention, like, he understands everything that he means to the team. He understands what he means to the city and for the fans of the Colts. And he also mentioned how relationships are repairable, which is true, right? Like, personally, I think of the Lamar Jackson and the Ravens relationship and how everybody said, oh, the relationship can't be mended. He's definitely going to be traded. And he ends up signing what was at the time the biggest deal for a quarterback in NFL history. So relationships are repairable. Like, there's a past history here. There was trust at one point. There can be trust again. You just have to work on it. And the good thing about this whole Jonathan Taylor being on the pup list going into the season is that it gives both sides a little bit of time to just cool off and come back together and start to write this thing. And what it comes down to, as much as I think the whole Jim Irsay's role in this, I think all of that is overblown. It hasn't helped, certainly. I'm not going to deny that, but I think it's a little overblown. But I think we've also noticed that Jim Irsay's kind of went and tucked away. He's not been involved in anything recently, no comments on anything recently, other than the second preseason game when he was talking about, we want Jonathan Taylor back and we expect him to be with us. So it just feels like the Colts, at least on their side, they're publicly saying, like, hey, we want to mend this relationship. It doesn't have to be like this. We gave you the leeway to go and seek a trade offer, but there was nothing that we were going to get in return that was good enough. Right. And one of the quotes that came out of this was when Chris Ballard said, quote, Jonathan is valuable. I'm not going to let him just walk out of the building. right? And that is short and sweet and to the point. Like, yes, he is probably the best player on the football team as it stands right now. Could be Anthony Richardson one day, may could be Anthony Richardson later this year. Right now, it's Jonathan Taylor. So, in what world is asking for the number two receiver on another team a wild request? Please tell me. Jonathan Taylor's only 24 years old. Right. So it just doesn't make sense, the whole wild request thing. But I do like the fact that Chris Ballard's not just going to let Jonathan Taylor walk out of the door and just be like, oh, yeah, well, the best offer we got was a third rounder and a seventh rounder. So we're going to take it. No, Chris Ballard's not going to do that. Everything he said in this press conference was like, yeah, we want to fix this relationship. We want to keep Jonathan Taylor. Right. Now, he did say that Jonathan Taylor still has pain in the ankle and that he won't be on the field until he's healthy. Okay, and there's no telling how long that's going to be, right? Every person is different, every football player is different, right? People heal at different rates, and especially running backs, right? Their feet and their ankles are probably torn up by the time they're 25 years old already. So, it's taken longer to come back, but also again, getting put back in the games last year and then hurting that ankle even more, kind of put everything behind. And then, you know, the surgery got delayed because of that whole thing. And it's a bad situation. That whole thing is a bad situation. So it's understandable why Jonathan Taylor is upset. And it's unfortunate that it's to the point where he's still hurt, what, 7, 8 months almost from when he had the surgery. Okay, now you heard me mention, situations are situational. Chris Ballard kind of hinted at that in his press conference, and he was honest about how every player's situation is just different from position to position and from player to player. It just changes, especially with the years. The new CBA that was signed a couple years ago changed things. But Chris Ballard made sure to come back to the point that he's not against paying elite players, and he is paid big money to offensive linemen and linebackers. That doesn't happen all around the league. Right? You think about even the Colts when Bill Polian was building it, right? He built up the offensive line, but linebackers didn't get paid, right? So I think he makes good points when he brings that up. I feel like some people think he's trying to sound arrogant when he says that, but like also he's spending Jim Irsay's money. Like there's nothing to be arrogant about. He's literally just doing his job when he pays these guys. So there's evidence that he's willing to pay great players. And I have faith that at the end of the day, when he says, yes, we want to pay Jonathan, I believe that he wants to pay Jonathan Taylor. Like, this is, I'm pretty sure, the only player that Chris Ballard has drafted up for in his time in Indianapolis, like at all. I don't hold me to that. I'm pretty sure. And if it's not the only one, then it's definitely like the earliest draft pick where he traded up to get a guy. But again, he did mention how he expects Jonathan Taylor to be on the team, and he wants him to be a part of the organization in the future because of everything he does on and off the field. Okay, one important note to remember about Chris Ballard, okay, in this whole Jonathan Taylor situation. Chris Ballard in his time here has never once used a franchise tag. Okay, he's had players whose deals have run out, but he's given them contracts. He's had guys like Quentin Nelson who got his 5th-year option picked up, and then they figured out a deal, a couple weeks before his 5th year started. So Chris Ballard, as he said in his training camp press conference, and he made sure to reiterate maybe 4 or 5 times in this press conference because of the questions being asked to him, was that the only reason that Jonathan Taylor doesn't have a new contract right now, because he's injured, right? Of course, because he's still injured. But the team won 4 games. The last thing that was said in his press conference, he was talking about how he pays the great players. And somebody asked him, why is this situation different with a great player than the other ones? And the last thing, short and sweet, that Chris Ballard said to end his press conference was, we won 4 games last year. And that's plain and simple. Like, the team won 4 games. It wasn't good. They have to figure out, like, who do we actually need to build around and who needs to go, right? And a big part of that is going to be who fits in with the coaching schemes, right? They have a pretty good idea who they want on defense, right? Gus Bradley was here last year. They're pretty good there, but there's a whole new offense coming in, and Jonathan Taylor is a part of the offense. They have to figure out what the offense is going to look like, what's his usage going to be like. So, because in the NFL, it's just the way it is. Stats get you money, right? The running back position currently is really the only one that's not going that way. But Jonathan Taylor, if he's going to get money from the Colts or anybody else, he's going to have to put up some pretty good yards and be pretty efficient in his touches. So it's completely understanding why the Colts have taken the position that they took. It's just an unfortunate situation, right? Like, a month ago, we were all like, yes, please hurry up and re-sign Jonathan Taylor. Like, please re-sign Jonathan Taylor. And now it's to a point that everybody's like, it doesn't even matter if he's gone. Just hurry up and get this situation done. And unfortunately, I don't know if there's going to be a resolution anytime soon, right? We could be looking at, this thing going up all the way until the trade deadline at Halloween. So, um, you know, gonna keep monitoring it. But at this time right now, and everything Chris Ballard said, I have faith that they're going to be able to start mending this relationship and figure out a way to get Jonathan Taylor back as soon as possible. And then by the end of the year, when Jonathan Taylor has produced and he looks like himself again, they'll end up being like, all right, let's go ahead, give you a new contract. We might not make the playoffs this year, but we're going to for every year for the next 15 years. So we're going to need you here with Anthony Richardson. That is what I'm hoping. That's what I'm manifesting. I want Jonathan Taylor here with Anthony Richardson. I think not only would that be exciting to watch, but it's going to help us win games at the end of the day. That's just the way it is, right? So with that said, I'd love to know what your opinion is of the situation as it sits. You let me know down in the comments section. And don't forget to subscribe with notifications on. Stay updated with more Colts content. And until next time, as always, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and go Colts.